So that's Polish mead. No, it's not. Like, we should just be like, we apologize. We're sorry to Poland.
Big disclaimer. Yeah, we apologize to the country of Poland for being ignorant Americans.
In this episode of Chop and Brew, we get a delicious introduction to Polish mead by way of a 3-mead flight guided by former Meadmakers of the Year Josh Holbrook and Steve Fletty. Learn about the Polish mead making process, honey and other ingredients used, and the importance of proper aging as we share our thoughts on these unique meads. Before we dig in, a quick shout out to our ongoing partner Imperial Yeast for making conversations like this possible, and the mead-loving Patreon party people. Join them in supporting the show at patreon.com/chopandbrew.
So we're starting off. We need a blanket apology for any mispronunciations or offensive remarks that we may make
about the Polish people.
Okay, my grandma was Polish, so I feel I could get some special dispensation.
Okay.
She used to tell me Polish jokes. I probably shouldn't tell those Polish jokes, though. Although they're not very offensive. Well,
Are they very funny?
well.
Yeah. If they're not funny, definitely skip it.
So we're starting out with the Trójniak? Trójniak?
So 1 part honey, 2 parts water, I believe is what they're saying is traditional for the style. And this one does not list any additional fruits or herbs or spices. I believe it's just the honey.
Look at that color.
Really? So Polish meads, as they've said, we're gonna blanket pre-apologize for both pronunciation and potentially lack of knowledge. Granted, there are style guidelines being written up about these. Experts in the field, but it's also just like most things in life. There's just more than you could probably ever gather from one person or one source. But what we do know is they're kind of categorized by their ratio of honey to water. So this is 1 part honey to 2 parts water. Mm-hmm. The next one we're going to get is 1 to 1. Mm-hmm. And the other one is 1 part honey to half part water, which just seems so viscous.
Supposedly.
And amazing. Oh, okay.
We'll see. Yeah. But from what I understand, age is a significant hallmark of the style.
Okay.
Yes. I think you start out with at least 9 months and up to 2 to 3 years on some of them.
In wood, in glass?
In neutral barrels?
Barrels, I would assume. I think that's kind of the way I had explained is there's an oxygen transfer as angel share flies away.
What
and like you said earlier, you can't fake the age. The age is so integral.
Right.
That you just have to actually let it age.
Because I've tasted a handful of homebrew ones, and I don't get nearly the sherry kind of thing on the nose as I have from these.
It is a big, complex nose here. It's fruity, sherry notes.
I always think it's interesting when something can smell sharp. Like, why does it smell sharp? Is it acidity? Is it like volatile acidity? Or is it an ingredient? Or is it, I don't know. Not that it's super sharp, but, I mean, seems a little bit.
Oh, and it's got a really soft body. Full mouthfeel. I mean, wow.
Pretty low acid. Seems like most of the balance is the alcohol.
Mm-hmm. I want to say there's something else in here, but there's nothing listed on the label. We don't.
Yeah, when I was reading the catalog that has the translations, it didn't list any special ingredients on this one. It sounded like it was a straight honey. I get very little tannin, if any. I mean,
But it's tart and acidic.
Yeah.
But balanced. I want to say there's something in there like, I don't know, rose hips maybe? I don't know.
What honeys are kind of popular?
I understand they use a lot of buckwheat honey and acacia honey. Okay.
Which I assume European buckwheat is not like our buckwheat.
And so Polish mead is, it's a ridiculous question, but how old in Poland versus how old it suddenly seems to be popular here?
I'm going to let Fletty take that question.
Oh, I've done enough speculating.
I guess the bigger question is like, how popular is it here, right? We just had an NHC come by where a handful of these meddled, and I feel like people were like, huh? What's a Polish mead? So now, obviously, there's guidelines being written, so there's a reason to need to define it.
I can think of at least 2 or 3 out of the last 5 years where a Polish mead has won National Mead Maker of the Year, AHA. Right? So in that sense, I'd say it's gaining popularity.
It is getting popularity, but I'm wondering how. I don't think there's a lot of familiarity with it, though. I think that's the problem. I think people run across. I mean, this is a huge, flavorful, interesting mead, and I think some judges like taste something like this and they go, "Oh, that's unique. I've never tasted anything like this. This is gold medal," because I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm serious.
But yeah,
Yeah.
novelty bias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Novelty bias. Huh.
It's not, I mean, I would, having never had a commercial one, I would have walked into it saying they're all very dessert style, almost
Yes.
cloying. I don't think it's cloying.
No, this is not cloying. It's
Granted,
like
it's the lighter honey ratio of the 3 on the table.
Yeah.
it's like a port.
You wonder what it would taste like young, you know, like if you had a side by side, you just made this like 3 months ago versus this one's 5 years old. Like, are you going to recognize that 3-month-old one as this style? Is it going to be missing hallmarks?
Right.
Do you know if those ones that have won awards on a homebrew scale here have been aged, or is that kind of part of the thing? There's a mimicking of flavors, but not necessarily of maturity.
Some people do mimic, but I was judging in Kansas City a few years ago, and I was on the mini boss table for the historical, which is Polish, and the one that won in that category, which we picked as the gold medal, went on to win best of show, and that was from Marek in Poland, and that was a fantastic mead. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. So yeah, they're and I'm sure he does it the right way, but there are some people who like you know, there are tricks apparently to mimic the aging process.
I don't think he posts a lot on Facebook, but it's fun to watch when he does, because when he's pouring one of his, it's always like, this is, you know, a 9-year-old. Like, he's not pouring stuff that just came out of a fermenter.
I did give him crap about that mead though, because he had jalapenos in it, so I was like, oh,
What?
yeah, the traditional jalapeno Polish mead. Hey, Marek.
Well, you said historical, which is only Polish. Is that the only?
No.
Oh.
Tej is the other big one, the Ethiopian
Okay.
style. And then
You were saying that's the only place it fits, kind of.
I mean,
Unless you
if
want
you're
people to
judging
be like-
historical, you're going to expect a fair amount of Polish meads. Like, it's one of the most popular ones. But it is an open category. You can do other historical meads from historical recipes.
Yeah, there are a lot of
It just doesn't
historical
happen as much.
English ones, for example. People don't make a lot of those though.
What's the documents like from the closet of Sir Kellum Digby
Yeah,
or whatever?
exactly.
There's like,
Digby.
70 recipes or something. It's
Yeah.
like a lot of, I think there's a lot of historical ones in there. But it's got kind of like a prune kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Well, should we open the second?
Onwards
I'm
and
gonna leave-
upwards.
I'm gonna leave
All right.
here. I'm gonna leave. Take a little. So we have a little.
You got to have it around.
We have the pictures
Keep it
and the
around.
Comparative. So not suitcase mead, just online. Online mead.
Online purchase mead. We use real American dollars to buy real Polish meads.
I use blue jeans to buy it.
And I think the meadery is Jaros. I think these are all from the same
Yeah, they are.
meadery.
Thank you for
I
bringing
asked.
these.
Yeah, you're welcome. I actually sent Merrick a message and asked him, you know, what high points should we cover if we're going to talk about these? And I said, I have meads from this meader here. Is it a good one? He's like, oh, those are very good. So, got his blessing.
Oh,
so
there's a
13%. The first one's 13. This one we're now at 16. And as you said, 1-to-1, honey to water.
Dwójniak.
And you said summer and autumn honey plus aromatic herbs.
It did say there are some herbs in there. It did not list specific herbs.
TBD.
It did not list any fruits.
Wow, I feel like we're just like
Different.
it's getting into like aquaviti kind of now. Like you're getting a lot
Like a
of
boozy
nose
spirit
of
kind
booze,
of
right?
booze on the nose.
And then botanicals, but not. I mean, you can still tell
Like
it's
spicy.
honey based for sure. It's not just like neutral grain alcohol with a bunch of.
But still like that sherry kind of.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like the way that carries a little bit more than this. Like, it's a little dark sugary.
I like
Kind
that
of
a
for
lot.
my liking. This is like, if this was a Bach or a Doppelbock, this would be like my Bach, and I'm kind of down for that. Those like more blonder, sweet sugars.
I'm getting a little higher alcohols in the nose.
For
Spicy
sure.
alcohol kind of thing. I would take a good swig of this before I step out of the fish house to go check the tip ups.
There's something about how it doesn't get like
It's not cloying.
no, and it doesn't really even like do that fumey kind of alcohol thing till like 3/4 of the way through, and then it just disappears, and then it lets you enjoy it way more as like a dessert wine.
I still stand by. I don't think there's a ton of acid in either of these, even though it seems sharp. Like particularly the first one seemed like it had, but I think it's the alcohol that's drying that up in the finish.
I think it's the age too. I think it just mellows everything out and makes it come together.
Rounds off those.
Is there like
elbows.
an age prerequisite? Kind of like you said, is there like a minimum age?
Yes, we have the preliminary BJCP style guidelines secretly smuggled out of Estonia.
I'll have to blur that out.
1 year for the first one, and 2 years for this one.
Up to how many? So that's the minimum.
I think so.
Probably
Yeah.
not a
Is there no
maximum.
such thing as a yeah?
I don't know. There, I've read one that's like 25 years, but
Not so
I
long
think you
that
have to
it
be
tastes gross.
Yeah.
And the idea being that like that stiffer ratio is going to take more time to smooth into something nice and enjoyable like this.
A lot of like dark fruit,
But I also think apple.
raisins, dates.
Kind of like those ciders that we had, or ciders, the meads that we had in our first flight, where in the middle we started talking about those middle sugars, and they seemed very like apple crisp, almost kind of like warm spices, but like cooked apple. You know,
Like
the honey
golden
and that like
raisins.
sugar juice that would come out of an apple. Oh man, this here is something else for real. I don't get tons of herb. I mean, I get these warm spices, but that could also be the alcohol. Like,
probably-
there's nothing that jumps out like, oh, lavender. Ooh, you know what I mean?
It's probably adding a little astringency to help counter some of that sweetness.
In the initial nose, I was getting sort of some fusely notes that were a little unpleasant to me, but the flavor is fantastic.
I know when I've had like nasty homebrewed stuff that I've made that was super fusely, like when I come back to like 5 years later because I was such a bum that I didn't want to dump it, like it turns into spicy
Yeah?
instead of like jet fuel. So if there is higher alcohol with the benefit of that age, it turns into like a spicy instead of burning like fire.
So this is
You're not getting that color from just the honey, I'm thinking.
But you get so much more spicy alcohol in the nose in the second one.
Look at the legs difference, though. I mean, they both have legs, but man, that blondish one is just like slick.
Legs for days.
Oh,
So Last Crusade. Ghost coming
or
out.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, we need more, don't we?
So this is the third example that Josh brought. It is a thing of beauty. It is corked with like ceramic, so you can't actually put a corkscrew in it. So they put like an awesome ripcord that is wax sealed against the bottle. This feels like we're opening the secrets to some previous civilization, honestly.
It looks like it pours very viscous. That's thick.
So Półtorak? Półtorak?
Sure.
1 part honey to half part water.
And the only notes on this one in the catalog were that this had a small addition of sour apple juice. It didn't list any herbs or anything else.
And you're assuming that that is post-fermentation, like a blending of sort. What do you think?
That would be my guess,
Yeah,
but
if
it's
you
just
say
a
1 part
guess.
honey, half part water. But how many parts sour apple juice?
And people that I've talked to say that these are often fortified commercially. This particular one doesn't say anything about being fortified, and it does list that it's only 13% compared to the 16% of the other two. Or,
Oh, no, it's
it is
16.
No, I take it back. 16%
But we would have expected it to be
higher than the last one.
like 18, 20, so it's kind of interesting. But, I mean, if that sour apple juice is blended, I guess that would bring down the ratio of honey to water in there. Oh, yeah? Your eyeballs were
I
like...
think my eyes are watering. I feel like the last one had a more complex nose. This one, definitely a lot of alcohol in the nose on this one.
And this doesn't have an aging reference in the style guidelines. This guideline, this is not a subcategory that's touched on. So it must be kind of like a specialty, almost.
Yeah, I feel like the sweetness is higher, and I feel like there's more of like a nutty, like almond or hazelnut kind of aged note in there.
But while it's really sweet, initially it dries out a little bit, and some of that alcohol and nuttiness age like counterbalance that sweetness.
It still doesn't drink as cloying, even
No.
though it's a pretty darn sweet mead. I mean, so I guess if there's the more you know rainbow, it's that
Oof.
Polish meads, although very sweet, are still balanced.
Yeah, exactly.
When you go back to the second one, it
There's some tartness there.
finishes much like hotter, for lack of a better word, but boozier,
The second one?
even though they're the same booze. So I'm wondering if this guy is aged much longer. See, the other ones have dates on them. This says date September 12, 20. No, sorry. December 9, 2020. February. I mean, but are those bottling? Those are probably bottling dates versus anything.
Yeah,
So I
that-
wonder how.
The sticker on this says 2018.
Oh,
Sticker on this one says 2017.
I feel like
Oh.
this is aged longer. It feels less. If these two are the same amount of alcohol,
2020.
this is
2020.
way smoother.
Oh, here we go. All of the varieties of Polish mead are required to be aged at least 9 months and up to 3 years minimally.
So that must mean in tier with category.
I would think so, yeah.
So 9 for the.
This
the
can
least
be in
alcoholic,
any
probably.
container where neutral oak barrels are traditional. However, stainless is more common.
I definitely don't get an obvious oak, like a new oak character out of these.
No.
And the Półtorak definitely seems strangely like it balances the alcohol better because
I think
the
it
sweetness
does,
the
yeah.
sweetness is higher.
For sure.
I keep waffling on how much acidity are in these because coming back down, it's like, woo! First one's got some acid. First taste, I was like, boy, there's really no acid here. Favorite?
Favorite?
I still think the second one, the third one has way more finesse, much more luxurious presentation. But there's something about that second one. I kind of like that heat. I like that sting a little bit, but it's also just this. I get more honey out of this than this. Maybe that's just because culturally I don't know what honey this is. This seems way more honey-like. This almost seems kind of like, to your point, there seems like there's something else in here that we don't know. Or it's
Just based on the color.
a honey that we don't know. But I like this one. This is like honey wine exemplified.
I agree. That's my favorite, the Dwójniak. Although the alcohol is more apparent than in the Półtorak, I feel like the quality of the alcohol is different. Like, I get a nice aged character to the Dwójniak, and the Półtorak I get almost, vegetal sounds bad, but it's to me the alcohol comes off a little different.
I mean, I feel like I should like this one more because it feels like more went into it, probably.
It's
If
definitely
nothing else, more patience.
It's the sweetest one.
Yeah.
And even though I don't like the nose on the, how do we just Dwójniak? It's more. I think it's more balanced and drinkable. I mean, the flavor that's really good though.
It's like if trads are like an expression of the essence of a particular honey. It's like Polish meads are like an expression of what age can do with honey. It's pretty cool. But I mean, because these would not taste this way if they weren't aged.
No, they would not. No.
So does Poland have meads that are
Fresh.
yeah?
I
You
don't
just
know.
call them like
Drop
No
a
clue.
line in the comments if you
yeah. Tell us in the comments if you're from Poland
and you have
and
fresh
you
meads.
have American style or English style meads. Like, I just fail to believe that like there aren't mead makers who also just want to enjoy their products sooner. I mean,
Well, that's probably the what is the other one?
Oh, the top one that we don't, the youngest.
one
The
to
1 to
three.
1,
1 to 3.
1 to 3. Oh, 1 to 3. I'm not even it.
It starts with a C. 1 part honey, 3 parts water. I think we had a OG range for that one in the back.
We do. OG 1097, ABV 9 to 12.
I don't think they're crowd pleasers. I think this is a. I mean, if you're gonna hand this to your cousin, your uncle, are they gonna go, "Ooh, that's delicious. Give me another glass of that."
I think this one's just a little beyond what people would expect if you're like, oh, it's a honey wine. And this is like too much of what you'd expect. Someone said a honey wine. This one kind of keeps it a little more balanced. So that is just a really thin slice of Polish mead. We're not experts. We'd love to learn more. If you are from Poland or make Polish meads with the proper amount of aging, let us know what is going on. Look out for Polish mead style guidelines coming up. I don't know, what else should we say about this? Like, it's just
Buy some Polish meads.
buy some Polish meads. It's a different look at something that we think we already know a lot about, right?
Yeah, I've only ever had homebrew ones, so this is, at least for me.
Yeah, as
Wanna get
a
educated.
judge, if you're a mead judge, I think you need to step out of your comfort zone and try things and make sure you're familiar with classic commercial examples, so that you can, if you're called on to judge these, you know what you're talking about.
Dwójniak for Dwójniak.
Półtorak for Półtorak.
Ah. Don't flame us. We're out to learn more. Send us an email of information, not of hate.
Ignorant Americans.